A baby is born. A bus plastered in ads pulled up in front of the hospital. 3 women emerged. The first was a few months pregnant. The second had a feeling she just might be. And the third was already very much in labor. It was this woman who was quickly swarmed by a group of men and women all yelling at once. Maybelline! Maybelline! Have you signed up with the cereal brand yet? Have you chosen your child's favorite sports team? Do you know what religion you are going to raise your baby in? What t-shirts are they going to wear? Can I tell you about our incredibly comfortable socks? Maybelline! Over here! Over here! Have you heard about the shows ABC is planning to produce in the coming decade? On and on. These recruiters screamed at Maybelline, trying desperately to get her to agree to a lifelong contract with their company on behalf of her unborn child in exchange for a hefty check before she had even entered the hospital, wherein they would then need to pay the hospital itself for access to her. They were relentless, standing between her and the door, doing everything they could to prevent her from going inside. Nor was this the first time they had harassed her. They had been soliciting her since the moment her pregnancy test came back positive and the results were sent from the baby birthing hospital to all of the companies in the area. And then, after the 2-week legally mandated waiting period, every other company in this great nation, which only intensified the soliciting, the harassment, the letters, the targeted commercials, the billboards in front of her apartment. They called her at all hours of the day and night. They came into her office in the middle of the workday and slipped her boss a 20 for the keys to her cubicle, which was only permitted to be unlocked during her 30-minute lunch break and her pre-approved bathroom breaks. And when she locked herself in her apartment, the recruiters still came, her landlord's pocket getting fatter night after night. So unsurprisingly, by the time the bus dropped her off in front of the hospital, she was sick and tired of all the offers, all the recruiters, all the questions. And yet, they kept coming. Even as she reached the front desk, there were advertisements all around it, covering the wall and the desk itself, billboards and brochures, stickers and water bottles, business cards and flyers, all covered in slogans and promises and offers. Even the man behind the desk was covered in ads. "Hello, miss," he said. "Who is sponsoring your visit today?" Maybelline told him that her hospital entrance was to be sponsored by 3 corporations in exchange for her child's lifelong patronage. She handed him contracts signed in both ink and blood, along with the checks and patches the corporations provided for her baby's suit. "Wonderful choices," said the man. "These are some great corporations, especially this one." As he said this, he pointed at his right shoulder, where stitched into his clothing was the very same patch. "They are one of the best companies in America. Don't you agree?" But Maybelline was unable to respond, for a contraction had come just as she opened her mouth to do so. Instead, she let out a scream. "Oh boy," said the man behind the desk. "Let's get you into a room, shall we?" The advertisements continued in her hospital room, where a nurse gave her a hospital gown to change into. It too was covered in advertisements. When the nurse left the room, Maybelline slid out of her bodysuit, which was covered in the many patches she had acquired throughout her life, some given to her at birth, a few more provided whenever a corporation sponsored one of her childhood activities, and many more given to her whenever she took on a loan of any sort, and dressed in the gown provided. She then lay in bed and stretched out her legs. The television across the room played pitches from various brands and their recruiters. She closed her eyes and tried to ignore them, but the volume had been turned up as loud as the TV would allow. She sat up in bed and looked around the room for a remote control, but could not find one. She got out of bed and walked up to the television, only to discover that all of the buttons had been removed, nor could she unplug it, for all the wires had been glued into place. Seeing no other option, Maybelline returned to bed, closed her eyes, plugged her ears with her fingers, and waited for the doctor to come and take this goddamn baby out of her. But the doctor was not the first to enter the room. Instead, Maybelline had to entertain several visitors before she could even be permitted to see the doctor. In total, 28 recruiters, representing companies that sold things like TVs, video games, shoes, trading cards, furniture, magazines, newspaper subscriptions, streaming services, sporting equipment, plants for future gardens, etc., entered the room. "Think about it," said the recruiter from the television company. "Your kid will spend most of their life staring at a screen. Don't you want them to be staring at the best of the best? Don't you want the colors to pop? Don't you want every pixel to be beautiful? Don't you want the sound to fully engulf them? Don't you want their life to be filled with beautiful images? Don't you want... And remember, said the recruiter from the furniture company, the discounts offered to your child today become active as soon as the contract is signed. Your baby may not yet need a recliner in the living room, but I bet somebody you know would love one. Is it true what I read in your files? You and your husband each work 90 plus hours a week, yet you still have to take out loans to pay your bills? Is that why he isn't here today? Is he unable to afford even just one day off to watch his baby be born? Boy, he must be exhausted. He must just love relaxing at home, putting his feet up, and having support during those few hours a week of leisure time. If only you could get him, I don't know, an incredibly comfortable reclining chair at a slightly discounted price. I wonder if there's any way that you could do something like... And if you sign this contract today, said the recruiter from a nationwide nursery, declaring your child will buy all their future plants, trees, seeds, pots, and so on from us, we are not only willing to give them 10% off of all of our products for life, but we will also pay 7% of your total hospital bill today, and up to 3% of future hospital bills throughout your child's life, as long as they remain loyal to the agreement made on their behalf today. As long as they... Similar conversations were had with each of the recruiters, and as they left, each gave the same ultimatum. You have until the time your baby is born to decide. After that, this deal is off the table. And remember, the hospital bill is due before your baby can leave. Otherwise, the child becomes property of the highest bidder. I'd hate to see you leave here without your baby. That would be quite a shame. How are you feeling? Asked the doctor when she finally entered the room at the conclusion of the 28th meeting, nearly 4 hours after Maybelline's arrival at the hospital. She responded with a detailed analysis of what each part of her body was feeling. My back feels like it is about to split, my knees are pounding faster than my heart, my skin is on the verge of tearing, my arms are... But the doctor cut her off. No, said the doctor, laughing. I meant about the presentations. How are you feeling? Pretty good, weren't they? On the lapel of the doctor's coat were patches identifying her credentials. There was one from the university where she had earned her doctorate, one from the company that owned the hospital, and one from each board she was currently a member of. Scattered over the rest of her coat were patches of various size advertisements. Obviously, the doctor went on to say, gesturing at those patches, I have been monetarily influenced to persuade you in a particular direction. Maybelline nodded. My employers would like me to sit here and say, sign up for this brand, and this particular religion will teach your child the best morals, while this religion will send your child straight to hell, and this organization has a terrible reputation, while this one has always been reliable and loyal to its customers. They provide me with scripts, presentation materials, and hefty checks whenever I am successful. You know how these companies are, only ever thinking about money. Maybelline and the doctor laughed together. They both knew the lengths corporations would go for 70, 80, 90 years of business from a single customer. They had been shown the math in grade school. They were reminded of it daily. They knew that, even after tens of thousands of dollars were given away, these companies always made their money back in the end. And then some. According to numerous studies, the number of years needed for a corporation to break even on their investment, depending on the size of the loan and the offered discount, was roughly 13 years. After that, it was nothing but profit. So, the more years a company had exclusive rights to a customer, the more profit they could make. Hence the presence of recruiters now outside every baby birthing hospital in America, all now in the hands of private organizations specializing in the selling of contracts to newborn babies through loans given to parents to cover the price of giving birth inside their hospital. Nor could parents opt to birth elsewhere, after years of lobbying had made them the only legal place to give birth in America. And the only way to leave a baby birthing hospital with your baby in hand was to pay the bill on the day of the birth. Anyway, said the doctor, pulling a clicker out of her pocket and pointing it at the television screen, changing the channel to a presentation, if you direct your attention to the screen, I will show you just how much your child's life will be improved if you agree to make the Pepsi Bottling Group their beverage company of choice. After concluding her presentation, the doctor turned to leave the room. I will give you a few minutes to think things over, she said on her way out, leaving behind a screaming, sweating, pain-filled Maybelline, one who still had lots of decisions to make before she could even think about pushing this baby out. After a few minutes had passed, an unbiased mediator entered the room. Every baby birthing hospital in America was required by law to have an unbiased mediator on its staff. It was their job to ensure no funny business took place during the signing of contracts and the passing of checks. The unbiased mediator who entered the room was a man in his late 60s, although he had undergone many procedures to disguise this fact. The procedures had been so successful that he presented as a 30-year-old man who had never worked a day in his life. Unlike Maybelline, who, at the age of 37, looked on the verge of 70. The unbiased mediator's wrinkles had been entirely eradicated. His hair had been dyed jet black and groomed in a way that made the thinning entirely unnoticeable. His lips had been repeatedly injected, his nose had been surgically reshaped, and his eyes had been repeatedly dyed white, along with his teeth. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, which was navy blue and covered in patches from various corporations. "Hi there. Maybelline, is it?" he said upon entering, checking his notes as he closed the door behind him. "What an exciting day this must be for you." "Yes," said Maybelline. "My husband and I are very excited to bring home our first child." This, of course, was not what he was referring to, and she knew it. And he knew that she knew it, and she knew that he knew that she knew it, and so on. "Before we begin with the paperwork," said the unbiased mediator, "I was wondering if you wouldn't mind one final presentation." Maybelline knew this question was nothing more than rhetorical, and that only one answer would suffice. So she gave it. "Oh boy, another presentation? Please, please, I would love another." "Wonderful," said the unbiased mediator with a smile. Out of his Gucci briefcase, he pulled a remote that was covered in diamonds. He pointed it at the screen and began his presentation. Over the next hour, he told Maybelline in incredible detail about his favorite corporations, offering her many incentives if she signed up with them, incentives he too would benefit from. And not only did he mention his favorite corporations, but he also made sure to include the corporations he highly discouraged her child from affiliating with, all of which just so happened to be in direct competition with his affiliations. Finished with the presentation, the unbiased mediator returned his diamond-studded remote to his Gucci briefcase and exchanged it for a stack of papers, along with the luxury fountain pen that was gold-plated and also covered in diamonds. "Now," he said, resting the stack on his lap, "have you decided which corporations you would like your child to be affiliated with?" Before she could respond, Maybelline felt another contraction coming. "Yes," she said through gritted teeth, "I have made up my mind." "Wonderful," said the unbiased mediator, still smiling. He looked down at the papers in his lap and asked the next question. "Have you in any way felt unfairly or inappropriately pressured to sign your child up with any particular corporation today?" Maybelline laughed at this question. "Oh, of course not," she said. "All is fair in the pursuit of money, is it not?" The unbiased mediator did not respond to her question. Instead, he continued to read from the script provided to him by the United States Congress. "Before you provide me with the corporations, please keep in mind that these affiliations are binding and will remain so throughout the life of your child. If they," meaning your child, "renege on any of these affiliations, they and you, the caregiver who signed the contract on their behalf, will be heavily fined and thrown into prison for a minimum of 5 years per infraction. With that being said, are you ready to proceed?" Maybelline had no choice. She knew that she could not afford the bill. She knew she could not live with the decision to sell yet another baby to the highest bidder. She knew her remaining years of fertility were winding down. She knew all she and her husband had ever wanted was to start a family. She knew what needed to be done. She knew what she needed to say. So she said it. "Yes, I am ready to proceed." In the end, she affiliated her unborn child with 48 corporations who collectively assumed all costs of her child's birth, which, by the end of the day, amounted to well over $2 million. The unbiased mediator ensured every line was signed, every I was dotted, and every T was crossed before leaving the room. "You have made some wonderful choices today," he said to Maybelline on his way out. Once outside, he looked at the doctor who waited patiently in the hall and said, "Every dollar has been accounted for. Miss Maybelline is ready to give birth." The unbiased mediator handed the clipboard filled with contracts to the doctor. "Wonderful job, my friend," said the doctor, reviewing the decisions made by Maybelline. "Wonderful job indeed." The doctor entered the room just as another contraction hit. "Well, said the doctor with a little laugh. It sounds like that baby is ready to come out, doesn't it? The doctor put on her gloves, adding, by the way, I saw the list of corporations you signed up with. It is a very impressive list. Your child is going to be very happy when it grows up. They are going to live such a wonderful life. I just know it. Yes, a wonderful life indeed, said the doctor, placing herself between Maybelline's legs for the first time all day. Now, she said, let's have ourselves a look, shall we? Maybelline did not have the chance to hold her newborn baby before she was taken out of the room for a thorough evaluation. All she saw was her baby in the hands of the doctor while the umbilical cord was snipped by the highest bidder. The placenta was handed to another. Can I hold her? Maybelline asked the doctor. Please, she cried, let me hold my baby. Not yet, said the doctor in response. Her sponsors want her immediately evaluated. After all, they are paying quite a lot for her today, and they want to ensure their investment is worth it, while they still have the time to void their contract. Once her sponsors were satisfied, the baby was brought back to Maybelline. While she was gone, she had been cleaned and dressed in a onesie covered in the patches of her new affiliations. Maybelline eagerly took the baby in her arms and swayed her gently back and forth. The corporation that paid for the rights is currently deliberating over her name, said the doctor. I will inform you when that decision has been made. Until then, try to get some rest. And with that, the doctor left the room. Immediately, upon the closing of the door, Maybelline began to cry, entirely overwhelmed by a flood of emotions. At first, she was overcome with joy at the arrival of her child. Then that joy became anxiety about the world she was to raise that child in. Then came pity, then anger, then guilt, then hopelessness. As the emotions continued to evolve, the tears continued to fall down the cheeks of Maybelline and her baby, not yet named.